Well, g'day guys and welcome back to Off the Mark Cricket. Now, apologies we haven't made videos in a long time, but we are back and hopefully you keep tuning in. Now Sanjay,
yes.
I want to raise a really interesting topic that has been talked about in world cricket lately. Now, for a long time, it's been widely accepted that Sachin Tendulkar is the greatest modern batsman since Sir Bradman.
And he's Indian.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Now, it's been accepted for a long time, but just recently, Cricket Australia put up an article on their website, and after doing like a numbers crunch, they found that Kumar Sangakkara from Sri Lanka should statistically be the greatest batsman since Don Bradman. Now this is remarkable because this guy as a batsman is averaging over 60 or something, well above the rest in his of the modern greats. So this raises the question now: do we suddenly accept that Sangakkara is the best since Bradman, or do we find a different way of analysing who is the best? Where does this place Tendulkar?
Well, I think if you start off with, the first thing you've got to look at is their raw statistics, and obviously statistics don't tell you the whole story, because you can have one guy go out there and make 100 in his own innings and then not play again. So if we look at the statistics for a start off, so you've got Kumar Sangakkara, 124 test matches, 11,493 runs, an average of 58.63 with 36 hundreds. If you look at the average to start off with, 58.63 is almost unheralded over such a long career. You'll find the last people to average around that were your George Headleys and players like Herbert Sutcliffe, and all the players from a long time ago. Then you move back to Tendulkar, who has sheer longevity in the game with 200 tests, 15,920 runs and an average of 53.78. Also unheard of. Nobody's played 200 tests before, barring the little master. But as I've said, statistics often don't tell you the whole story. So we've decided to focus on what we think are 4 key principles that impact a batsman's performance in the game, and use these to evaluate who we think is the best since Bradman. So these 4 are technique, which we've broken down into effectiveness and style. Next, we're looking at temperament, then adaptability, and then finally impact. So this being impact on the game as a whole and impact on the team's performance. And we've rated each batsman out of 5 on all these aspects to work out a total score of 60 to decide who we think is the best since Sir Bradman.
So Sanjay, both Tendulkar and Sangakkara are very highly regarded batsmen in their own right, but their techniques I find are very different, and they've both contributed to the amount of success they've had. Now, when you look at Sangakkara, when I think of Sangakkara, he's a very classical batsman. He's been classical in the sense that it's not like a natural thing, but he's been coached into it, and he's a very well-drilled sort of player. When I look at him, he's got a nice flair about his batting, and that distinct Kumar Sangakkara cover drive is a very iconic shot in the game today. And when I look at this, if I were to rate his style of batting, I'd give him maybe 4.5 out of 5.
Yep. I'm in agreement there. I'd also give Sangakkara 4.5 out of 5 for his style, purely because he's one of the stylish batsmen to come out, one of the most stylish batsmen to come out of the subcontinent, and he's got a really fluid technique. It's just all the shots flow. You rarely see him mistime a shot as such. So I'm in agreement, 4.5.
Now when I go to Tendulkar, Tendulkar's technique it's more about effectiveness than style in my opinion. He's got a very compact technique, very mechanical. Like all his movements are very sure. Like they're very confident, and he's sort of sacrificed style and more on the effectiveness of the game. But having said that, he's a lovely player to watch, especially his cover drive and straight batting. He has one of the straightest bats I've ever seen him. He does play. So having said that, I'll give him a 4 out of 5 for style.
I'm in agreement. I don't think he's as stylish as Kumar Sangakkara. I'm probably a bit harsher than you. I've given him a 3.5, and I may cop some stick for that. But I'm prepared to take that. I think that's purely because, as you've said, his game is founded on the basics. He's got the basics down pat, and he sticks to them. It's a very simple technique, and it works. So I think in style he's not as much as Kumar Sangakkara, but as we move on to effectiveness now, what do you think?
Well, in terms of effectiveness, going back to Sangakkara now, Sangakkara's a technique has grown to become effective over time, right? In the beginning, he used to get out caught a lot in the slips. Like it wasn't very solid, but over the last 5 or 6 years or so, it's become one of the most solid techniques in international cricket. And in terms of effectiveness, compared to other batsmen of the modern era, Sangakkara gets out to LBWs far less than his contemporaries. Why? It's because he's much more balanced than a lot of other batsmen. Like if you watch the way he bats, he bends his knees a lot more. He's much more like bent knees, so that it shows that he has a very strong balance at the crease. So in terms of that, I'd give him probably 4 out of 5 for technique.
Yep, I'd again agree with you on that. I think I'd give him a 4 out of 5 for technique as well, but mine is for different reasons. I didn't know the LBW stat, but I think that's extremely evident in how effective he is as a batsman. But I think the reason that I give him a 4 out of 5 for his effectiveness is purely because he's got a technique that's worked all over the world. Unlike some subcontinental batsmen who will perform extremely well home on dry, cracked pitches, and then the second they see a swinging ball, they've got no idea what to do. Kumar Sangakkara has performed in England, he's performed in Australia, he's performed in South Africa, so I'd give him a 4 as well. So what about Tendulkar for effectiveness?
Tendulkar, well, arguably I think Tendulkar's batting technique has to be the most effective technique of all time. This guy has been playing since the late 80s, you know, so he's had his batting technique has survived Courtney Walsh, Wasim Akram, right, all these sort of great fast bowlers, and he's still come out and made hundreds. So that just goes to show how effective Tendulkar's technique is. I mean, he's sacrificed style for technique. He's more focused on scoring runs and looking good. So, I have to say, I hope the Sri Lankans don't cut my neck for this, but I would give Tendulkar a 5 out of 5 for technique.
Yep, for the effectiveness. And I agree. As I said before, on the stylish part, I think Kumar Sangakkara is more stylish. But I think in terms of effectiveness, Sachin Tendulkar trumps him in all aspects. I think, as we've said, he's got a simple technique, but he's built on the basics from the start. And his technique, although he's gone through tweaks and changes with age, he's changed his attacking style to a more sort of moderate style, but I still believe that his effectiveness in terms of his technique is still 5 out of 5.
Oh, definitely, yeah. When I look at temperament, when I look at Sangakkara's temperament, I think it's very similar to Rahul Dravid's in the sense that he thinks a lot about the game, he likes to talk, he's a very switched on, smart sort of cricketer, and he has an appetite for big scores like 319 against Bangladesh. So in terms of that, oftentimes he's had to shoulder Sri Lanka's batting when they're under pressure, and there's been a lot of one-man shows from Sangakkara as well. So he's taken on pressure really well, and that's why he has such a great temperament. So in terms of that, I give him a 4 out of 5.
I think he's also got excellent temperament. As you've said, he has had to shoulder a lot of the weight of Sri Lanka's batting, and I think commonly in crunch games, if Sri Lanka falls short, whether they win or not, regardless, you never have to doubt that Kumar Sangakkara has done a lot of the work. So on that basis, his temperament, he's had to shoulder a lot, so I give him a 4.
That's fair enough. Now, if you look at Tendulkar, if I was to look at Tendulkar, well, he is of course a very ruffled, very focused sort of guy. Since he was a young bloke, he's known to have a very good temperament. I think I remember 1992 when he was 19, Merv Hughes and Craig McDermott were full giving a lot of trouble at Perth, but Tendulkar, 19 years old, still made 100, so that goes to show just how strong his temperament is as a batsman. So in terms of that, I'd put it a bit higher, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yep, I'd give him the same rating, and I think if you just sum it down to one statement, I think it's just because he's had the weight of 1 billion people on his shoulders for 24 years, yet he's delivered time and time again. He's never ruffled by that, and that kind of pressure on a set of smaller shoulders is quite good, so I'd also give him 4.5.
Yeah, definitely.
So now we move on to adaptability, and this is basically how a batsman can change their game to suit the game situation in Test cricket. And firstly for Kumar Sangakkara, I personally think he is not as adaptable as Sachin Tendulkar. I think that he knows his basics well, we've said that. He's got an excellent technique, and I think he just sticks to that because he knows it works and he delivers on that. So I think that in terms of adaptability, I'd probably give him a 4. I think that he's got his good shots, he's got his cover drive, his on drive, his glances, and he sticks to those and he does them well.
Yeah, well, I think I have to disagree with you there, Sanjay, because of all the Sri Lankan batsmen, Sangakkara is the most adaptable. I mean, he's the only Sri Lankan batsman to average 40 in ODI cricket. Everyone else averages less than that. And also, he's performed everywhere in the world, I mean, yes, unlike Tendulkar, he doesn't play a lot of the bond shots, like your lap shots and all these reverse sweeps, but he doesn't need to because his batting is formed on simplicity, He only needs to play the cover drive, on drive, your leg glances, pulls and cuts. That's all he needs to get runs, and it's helped him a lot. I mean, this is why he averages nearly 70 in Test cricket. So I think he is a very, very adaptable batsman. And having said that, I'd probably give him 4.5 out of 5.
Yep, fair enough. Then on to Tendulkar. I think Tendulkar is one of the most adaptable batsmen we've ever seen. As we said, he's faced hostile bowling like Wasim Akram, Courtney Walsh, Malcolm Marshall, the big quartet of West Indies fast bowlers. But he's also faced the modern day bowlers, and I think he's not afraid to try new things. He's one of the first people to have sort of patented that lap shot over the keeper,
Yeah.
as well as the laps behind. And I think he's not afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
So he sticks to his basics, but when he needs to, he pulls out the big guns and does what he needs to. So I think I'd give him a 4.5.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Tendulkar is, of course, you know, he's to be the best. Your technique has to adapt in every conditions, and he, you know, he does average almost 50 in every country. And the good thing about Tendulkar, I guess, is that he's always updating his technique. He's going with the time. So if these young guys are playing these really weird shots, he's going to try and get into it and try and, you know, make it effective. And that's probably what stands out about his batting. That's the contrast between Sangakkara and Tendulkar, I guess. But in terms of that, I give him a 4.5 out of 5 as well for technique. Impact. Now when we look at a player's impact, we've got to look at it in two ways. We've got to look at it as a team performance and also look at how they've impacted on the game as a whole. Now when I look at Sangakkara, Sangakkara, I feel after Sana Jayasuriya, Sangakkara has had the most impact for Sri Lanka, I feel, in both one days and Test cricket. You know, he's won games single-handedly for Sri Lanka. You know, I remember a time in 2006 he scored that world record 624 partnership with Mahela to really take the Test match away from South Africa. And this is why I feel he's such a high-impact player. So I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5.
I agree. I'd also give him 4.5 out of 5. I think that's purely because when Sri Lanka have had tough times, he's carried them to respectable scores. When they've had good times, he's carried them to wins, and I think he's carried them year in and year out. He's had such a high impact on the team as a whole that I'd just give him 4.5 as well.
Now, if we look at Tendulkar, as his team impact, I feel it's a bit up and down. I mean, yes, he's won games for India with his own bat, but I feel that on most occasions, whenever Tendulkar does score, India, I don't know, seem to falter at, you know, the finishing line. I mean, I remember that 175 he scored in a one day against Australia. I mean, he literally scored half the score for India, but still India lost by like 15 runs, you know? So in terms of that regard, I think Tendulkar is more of a run machine, but not really a match winner. I put Rahul Dravid as more of a match winning batsman, someone who bats to win the game for India.
Alright. So what would you give him a rating?
In terms of that, I'd say Tendulkar's about 3.5 out of 5.
Fair enough. I've given him a 4, and just on your point with 175 he made, I think this issue that people face where they think that when Tendulkar makes 100, India lose, is more down to India's ineptness as a team rather than Tendulkar. Because I think in games like that, you've got to ask what more could Tendulkar have done. I think it's just that sometimes the Indian team needed Tendulkar to bat at 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that obviously can't happen. I think he's had a lot of impact on games. He's been their talisman. He's carried them. So for that reason, I think he's got a 4 out of 5.
So if we look at impact now on the game itself, if I go to Sangakkara, I think someone like Sangakkara, he deserves to have a bigger image in the game, but unfortunately, because he plays for a country like Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka is often a nation that often gets marginalised, and he doesn't receive as many opportunities as Tendulkar to perform, right? But having said that, you know, to his credit, whenever he has had a chance to perform, he has taken it with both hands, so that's really good. Also, you know, despite the fact that he doesn't get those opportunities, people recognise that Sangakkara is a truly great player. I mean, he won ICC Cricket of the Year in 2011 and 2012, so that just underlines how great a player he really is. Right? So in terms of that, Sangakkara is like the unsung hero, and I'd give him maybe, you know, a 4 out of 5.
Yep. I'd give him 3.5. I think that he's had incredible impact on the game of cricket, and as you said, I think that Sri Lanka just don't receive the same opportunity as India do in Test cricket. But I think that when he has been given these opportunities, he's taken them with both hands. You can only score runs against the teams you're put against. You can't do anything else, and Kumar Sangakkara has done exactly that. I'd give him 3.5 purely because I think in the grand scheme of batsmen, there are names that will come. He may be better than others, but there are names that will come before him when people think about the game of cricket as a whole.
He's one of those guys where, like, if you were to name a World 11 and he just said Sangakkara, you'd be like, yeah, I'd take him. Sort of thing.
And then what about Tendulkar? What do you think?
Tendulkar is like your classic iconic cricketer, isn't he? He's a classic hero of the game, you know. He's an iconic figure. Like, if you were to name any World 11, Tendulkar would just walk in by default, you know. He's achieved this level of greatness where he's like he's the god of batting, as Indians like to refer to. So, you know, in terms of that, he's like a larger than life character. So I'd give him a 4.5 out of 5.
I agree. I'd give him 4.5 as well. I think Tendulkar has defined cricket for the past 20 years. He's the face of the game, and I think he's arguably larger than the game itself. And for that reason, there's been, barring a few others, I think that he's had possibly the biggest impact on cricket you can have, so I'd give him 4.5 as well. So guys, that's our analysis. That's what we think makes the best batsman since Bradman. So we'll run through our numbers again, and then with our great powers of mathematics, we'll try and work out who came on top. So first, for technique, for the style component, we've got Kumar Sangakkara. We gave him a combined total of 9 out of 10. With Tendulkar, we gave him 7.5 out of 10. For effectiveness, we gave Sangakkara 8 out of 10, and for Tendulkar, we gave him 10 out of 10.
In terms of temperament, Tendulkar scored 8.5 out of 10. Sangakkara also scored 8.5 out of 10. In terms of adaptability, Tendulkar scored 9 out of 10, while Sangakkara scored 8.5 out of 10.
Lastly, for impact, in terms of team performance, we gave Sangakkara 9 out of 10 and Tendulkar 7.5 out of 10. In terms of impact on the game of cricket as a whole, we gave Sangakkara 7.5 out of 10 and Tendulkar 9 out of 10.
So, upon our final conclusion of the analysis of these two great batsmen, we found that Sangakkara scored 50.5 out of 60 and Tendulkar just edges ahead with 52.5 out of 60. So you can see there isn't really a huge difference between these two batsmen, as they're both greats of the game in their own right.
But the Indian did win.
Well guys, that's a wrap from us today. Thank you for watching. If you like, please feel free to give your comments in the section below about who you think is the best since Bradman. And don't forget to share, like and subscribe.
By the way guys, if we did just go on stats, there is one batsman who's better than Bradman. That's Andy Gunterhoom from the West Indies. He played one test in 1940, 50, around then sometime, and he made 112 with 13 fours and was dropped and never played again. The reason for his dropping, they said that his 100 was too slow. Fancy that. Anyway, if we also knock out Andy Gunterhoom, there is myself. I averaged 111 in the under-13s, dismissed twice for the whole season, so therefore I am better than Bradman. Thank you.